I'm Jackie, and we're doing another vampire story time. So I'm a couple minutes early. So I'm also streaming simultaneously on Facebook Live. But that doesn't start for 2 more minutes. So we'll just kind of hang out here for 2 minutes, see if anybody wants to tune in. So tonight I'm in my upstairs living room because my house has 2 living rooms for some bizarre reason. But tonight I have these great curios. I don't know if you can see them or not, but it's a few of my favorite little knickknacks here. Hi, looks like we got a couple people joining. Hello. I'm Jackie, and this is Vampire Story Time. Tonight, I'm going to be reading Tom Thumb, so that's very exciting. I'll be getting going in 1 minute because we have to wait for the Facebook live stream to start because we're doing simulcast across multiple platforms. Huzzah! Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, I'm still kind of figuring out this whole streaming thing. It seems pretty fun though. And if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to ask or say or do. Do as thou wilt. That is the first and only law. This is the whole of the law. That's what it is. Sorry, I'm a little brain fart there. Okay, so it looks like we are live on Facebook now. So we're live on both platforms. So tonight, it is Vampire Story Time. Welcome, my darlings, my baby bats. Tonight, we're going to be reading another story from the Grimm's Fairy Tale. Always the best book for bedtime stories. Gotta love those old Germanic stories for being bizarre and kind of sad and just chock full of what the fuck. It's good stuff. So let's see. I said I was going to start with Tom Thumb tonight. So we're just going to give this a moment. Let me see. Has anybody... Are we going? Are we doing the thing?
I'll see you on Facebook.
I'm being told that I can't be seen on Facebook yet. Oh, can you see me now, darling? Are we?
Not yet.
It says I'm going. Bear with me. Okay, yeah, it says that it's going now. I still have to get this all figured out.
Okay, it's going.
Oh, good. Good. Huzzah! We have liftoff. So, again, welcome everyone to Vampire Story Time. We're going to be reading from the Grimm's Fairy Tales. Some more tragic, dour, confusing, oldie-timey stories. That's always a big pile of fun. So tonight we're doing Tom Thumb. Let's see. Sorry, still tinkering with my Facebook Live here. Okay. wheel spinning wool. It's just kind of a weird word there. Then he said, "How sad is it that we have no children? With us all is so quiet, and in other houses it is noisy and lively." "Yes," replied the wife and sighed. "Even if we had only one, and it were quite small, and only as big as a thumb, I should be quite satisfied, and we would still love it with all our hearts." Now it so happened that the woman fell ill, and after 7 months gave birth to a child that was perfect in all its limbs, but no longer than a thumb. Then said they, "It is as we wished it to be, and it shall be our dear child." And because of its size, they called it Tom Thumb. They did not let it want for food, but the child did not grow taller, but remained as it had been at first. Nevertheless, it looked sensibly out of its eyes, and soon showed itself to be a wise and nimble creature, for everything it did turned out well. One day the peasant was getting ready to go to the forest to cut wood, when he said, as if to himself, "How I wish that there was any one who would bring the cart to me." "Oh, father," cried Tom Thumb, "I will soon bring the cart. Rely on that. It shall be in the forest at the appointed time." The man smiled and said, "How can that be done? Thou art far too small to lead the horse by its reins." "That's of no consequence, father. If my mother will only harness it, I shall sit in the horse's ear and call out to him how he is to go." "Well," answered the man, "for once we will try it." When the time came, the mother harnessed the horse and placed Tom Thumb in its ear, and then the little creature cried out, "Gee up, gee up!" Then it went quite properly, as if with its master, and the cart went the right way into the forest. It so happened that just as he was turning a corner, the little one was crying, "Gee up!" 2 strange men came toward him. "My word," said one of them, "what is this? There is a cart coming, and the driver is calling to the horse, and still he is not to be seen." "That can't be right," said the other. "We will follow the cart and see where it stops." The cart, however, drove right into the forest, and exactly to the place where the wood had been cut. When Tom Thumb saw his father, he cried to him, "Seest thou, father? Here I am with the cart. Now take me down." The father got hold of the horse with his left hand, and with the right took his little son out of the ear. Tom Thumb sat down quite merrily on the straw, but when the 2 strange men saw him, they did not know what to say for astonishment. Then one of them took the other aside and said, "Hark! The little fellow would make our fortune if we exhibited him in a large town for money. We will buy him." They went to the peasant and said, "Sell us the little man. He shall be well treated with us." "No," replied the father. He is the apple of my eye, and all the money in the world cannot buy him from me." Tom Thumb, however, when he heard of the bargain, had crept up the folds of his father's coat, placed himself on his shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "Father, do give me away. I will soon come back again." Then the father parted with him to the 2 men for a handsome bit of money. "Where wilt thou sit?" they said to him. "Oh, just set me on the rim of your hat, and then I can walk backwards and forwards and look at the country and still not fall down." They did as he wished, And when Tom Thumb had taken leave of his father, they went away with him. They walked until it was dusk, and the little fellow said, "Do take me down. I want to come down." The man took his hat off and put the little fellow on the ground by the wayside, and he leapt and crept about a little between the sods, the grass. And then he suddenly slipped into a mouse hole, which he had sought out. Oh, and there is an illustration on here as well. I don't know if you can see that. It's a fun little like woodcut type design. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, gentlemen. Just go home without me, he cried to them and mocked them. They ran thither and stuck their sticks into the mouse hole, but it was a lost labor. Tom Thumb crept still farther in, and it soon became quite dark. They were forced to go home with their vexation and their empty purses. When Tom Thumb saw that they were gone, he crept back out of the subterranean passage. "It is so dangerous to walk on the ground in the dark," said he. "How easily a neck or a leg is broken." Fortunately, he knocked against an empty snail shell. "Thank God," said he, in that I can pass the night in safety," and got into it. Not long afterwards, he was just going to sleep. He heard two men go by, and one of them was saying, "How shall we contrive to get hold of the rich pastor's silver and gold?" "I could tell thee that." "Oh, I could tell thee that," cried Tom Thumb, interrupting them. "What was that?" said one of the thieves in fright. "I heard someone speaking." They stood still listening, and Tom Thumb spoke again and said, "Take me with you, and I will help you." "But where art thou?" "Just look on the ground and observe from whence my voice comes," he replied. There the thieves at length found him and lifted him up. "Thou Thou little imp, how wilt thou help us?" they said. "A great deal," said he. "I will creep into the pastor's room through the iron bars and will reach out to you whatever you want to have." "Come then," said he, and we will see what thou canst do." Very thick language in these stories. It's funny that he's kind of a little shit. Like, "Hey, Dad, let's trick these guys into giving you a bunch of money and I'll just run away." And then like, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you like rob somebody's house. That's fine." A little bored teenager, I guess, kind of stuff. Anyway. You get up into trouble in the woods, I guess, when you're tiny. That's what happens when they don't have any video games to play, I think. It's better nowadays, maybe. All the tiny little imp children aren't getting into as much trouble. Bow, ba, bow, bow. When they got to the pastor's house, Tom Thumb crept into the room, but instantly cried out with all his might, "Do you want to have everything that is here?" The thieves were alarmed and said, "But do speak softly, so as not to waken anyone." Tom Thumb, however, behaved as if he had not understood this, and cried again, "What do you want? Do you want to have everything that is here?" The cook, who had slept in the next room, heard this and sat up in bed and listened. The thieves, however, had in their fright run some distance away. But at last they took courage and thought, "The little rascal wants to mock us." They came back and whispered to him, "Come, be serious, and reach something out to us." There's a kitten. This is one of my 2 one-eyed black cats, by the way. You gonna help me read, baby? Yeah? This is Leela. Leela Bean. Hi, baby. You gonna interrupt my story? That's okay. Yeah. See, do you see that big old one eye? Isn't she precious? Now I've lost my place. I got distracted a little bit. So I guess this little guy isn't quite as bad as maybe I thought, since he's just he's kind of razzing the thieves here. Then Tom Thumb cried as loudly as he could, "I really will give you everything. Just put your hands in." The maid, who was listening, heard this quite distinctly, and jumped out of bed and rushed to the door. The thieves took flight and ran as if the wild huntsmen were behind them. But as the maid could not see anything, she went to strike a light. When she came to the place with it, Tom Thumb, unperceived, betook himself to the granary, and the maid, after she had examined every corner and found nothing, laid down in her bed again, and believed that, after all, she had only been dreaming with open eyes and ears. Tom Thumb had climbed up among the hay, and found a beautiful place to sleep in. There he intended to rest until day, and then go home again with his parents. But he had other things to go through. Truly, there is much affliction and misery in the world. I mean, yeah, that's what all these stories are about, isn't it? When the day dawned, the maid arose from her bed to feed the cows. Her first walk was into the barn, where she laid a hold of an armful of hay, and precisely that very one which poor Tom Thumb was lying asleep. He, however, was sleeping so soundly that he was aware of nothing, and did not wake until he was in the mouth of the cow, who had picked him up in the hay. "Oh, heavens!" he cried. How have I got into the fulling mill?" But he soon discovered where he was. Then it was necessary to be careful not to let himself go between the teeth and be dismembered. But he was nevertheless forced to slip down into the stomach with the hay. "In this little room the windows are forgotten," said he, "and no sun shines in, neither will a candle be brought." His quarters were especially unpleasing to him, and the worst was, more and more hay was always coming in by the door, and the space grew less and less. Then at length, in his anguish, he cried as loud as he could, "Bring me no more fodder! Bring me no more fodder!" The maid was just milking the cow, and when she heard someone speaking and saw no one, and perceived that it was the same voice she had heard in the night, she was so terrified that she slipped off her stool and spilt the milk. She ran in great haste to her master and said, "Oh heavens, pastor, the cow has been speaking." Hang on, let me see. Are there any comments? Oh, hello. Hello, all the peoples. Good to see you on the Facebook Live. Hello. Hope everybody's enjoying. Yeah, and then we got a few people here in the TikToks. Okay. "Thou art mad," replied the pastor. But he went himself to the byre to see what was there. Hardly, however, had he set his foot inside when Tom Thumb again cried, "Bring me no more fodder! Bring me no more fodder!" Then the pastor himself was alarmed, and thought that an evil spirit had gone into the cow and ordered her to be killed. She was killed, but the stomach in which Tom Thumb was thrown on the midden. Tom Thumb had great difficulty in working his way, however. He succumbed so far as he could get some room. But just as he was going to thrust his head out, a new misfortune occurred. A hungry wolf ran thither and swallowed the whole stomach in one gulp. Tom Thumb did not lose courage. Perhaps, thought he, the wolf will listen to what I have to say. And he called to him from out of his stomach, "Dear wolf, I know of a magnificent feast for thee." "Where is it to be had?" said the wolf. "In such and such a house. Thou must creep into it through the kitchen sink, and wilt find cakes, bacon, and sausages, and as much of them as thou canst eat." And he described to him exactly his father's house. The wolf did not require to be told this twice, squeezed himself in at night through the sink, really? And ate to his heart's content in the larder. He had eaten his fill. He wanted to go out again, but he had become so big that he could not go out by the same way. And I mean, really, by now Tom Thumb would have suffocated to death, but, you know, yeah. I mean, honestly, this story is kind of boring. But I'm going to keep going. It's almost over. I promise. We're almost there. And then we'll go for a different one, hopefully a little bit more zingy, something a little bit more peppy. Anyhow, Tom Thumb had reckoned on this and now began to make a violent noise in the wolf's body and raged and screamed as loudly as he could. "Wilt thou be quiet?" said the wolf. "Thou wilt waken up the people." "Eh? What?" replied the little fellow. "Thou hast eaten thy fill, and will make merry likewise," and began once more to scream with all his strength. At this, his father and mother were aroused by it, and ran to the room and looked in through the opening in the door. When they saw that a wolf was inside, they ran away, and the husband fetched his axe, and the wife the scythe. "Stay behind," said the man, when they entered the room. "When I have given him a blow, if he is not killed by it, thou must cut him down and hew his body into pieces." Then Tom Thumb heard his parents' voices and cried, "Dear father, I am here. I am in the wolf's body." Said the father, full of joy, "Thank God, our dear child has found us again," and bade the woman take away her scythe, and Tom Thumb might not be hurt by it. After that he raised his arms and struck the wolf such a blow on his head that he fell down dead. And then they got knives and scissors and cut his body open and drew the little fellow forth. "Ah," said the father, "what sorrow we have gone through for thy sake." "Yes, father, I have gone about the world a great deal. Thank heaven I breathe fresh air again." "Where hast thou been, then?" "Ah, father, I have been in a mouse's hole, in a cow's stomach, and then in a wolf's. Now I will stay with you." "And we will not sell thee again. No, not for all the riches in the world," said his parents. And they embraced and kissed their dear Tom Thumb. They gave him to eat and drink, and had some new clothes made for him, for his own had been spoiled and were covered in wolf shit. Yay! And that's the end. So let's see. Oh, here's a little short one. We'll keep going. Sweet porridge. There was a poor but good little girl who lived alone with her mother, and they no longer had anything to eat. So the child went into the forest, and there an aged woman met her who was aware of her sorrow, and presented her with a little pot, which, when she said, "Cook, little pot, cook," would cook good sweet porridge. And when she said, "Stop, little pot," it ceased to cook. The girl took the pot home to her mother, and now they were freed from their poverty and hunger, and ate sweet porridge as often as they chose. Once on a time, when the girl had gone out, her mother said, "Cook, little pot, cook." And it did cook, and she ate till she was satisfied. And then she wanted the pot to stop cooking, but did not know the word. So it went on cooking, and the porridge rose over the edge, and still it cooked on until the kitchen and the whole house were full, and then the next house, and then the whole street, just as if it wanted to satisfy the hunger of the whole world. And there was greatest distress, but no one knew how to stop it. At last, only one single house remained. The child came home and just said, "Stop, little pot, stop." But it did not stop. It kept going and going and going. And it ate the town, and it ate the village, and it ate the state, and it ate the country, and it ate the continent. And then the National Guard came, and it ate them. And then the world's militaries came, and it ate them. And the Russians sent nukes, but it just ate them. And then it covered the entire world in a sticky goo. The end. All right, let's find another little short one. I like these short ones. All right. Fair cat. I don't know if I can read this one because I can't even pronounce the title. It's just kind of a jumble of consonants. I don't know that it's. Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with that one. No. Maybe if I want. Oh, and there's one with a really problematic title, and I'm not gonna read that one either. Huh. Yeah. All right. The Old Beggar Woman. At least it's less. I mean, I'm just going to show you this other title that I'm not going to read. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not. No. I think bloody not. So we'll read The Old Beggar Woman instead. There was once an old woman, but thou hast surely seen an old woman go a-begging before now. This woman begged likewise, and when she got anything, she said, "May God reward you." The beggar woman came to a door, and there by the fire a friendly rogue of a boy was standing warming himself. The boy said kindly to the poor old woman, as she was standing shivering thus by the door, "Come, old mother, and warm yourself." She came in, but stood too near to the fire, so that her old rags began to burn, and she was not aware of it. The boy stood and saw that, but he ought to have put the flames out. It is not true that he ought. Is it not true that he ought to have put them out? And if he had not any water, then should he have wept all the water in his body out of his eyes, and that would have supplied 2 pretty streams with which to extinguish them. That's the end of the story. That's... All right. We've reached peak oldie-timey what the fuck, I think. Oh, God. There's an illustration for the problem. I'm not... nope. Oh, there's a couple of... These are bad. It's bad. Oh, Fitcher's Bird. I like this one. This is actually one of my favorites. All right, I'm gonna grab some water though before I start this one. Whet my whistle. Yeah, see, it's too dry. I can't whistle. And while we're doing that, I'll check. We got any more? Oh, hello everybody. Hi, Ian. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Leo. I see you. I see you. Okay. I got a lot of fun stickers. Let me see. Tattitude! These are actually stickers that I made, these two here. And then this is a sticker from my company, Zero Depth Productions. It's where you can find coloring books and original art and commissions and all kinds of fun stuff. Okay, we'll put this away and get down to some Fitcher Burden. Fitcher's Bird. There once was a wizard who used to take the form of a poor man and went to houses and begged and caught pretty girls. No one knew whither he carried them, for they were never seen, nevermore. One day he appeared before the door of a man who had 3 pretty daughters. He looked like a poor, weak beggar and carried a basket on his back, as if he meant to collect charitable gifts in it. He begged for a little food, and when the eldest daughter came out and was just reaching him a piece of bread, he did but touch her, and she was forced to jump into his basket. Thereupon he hurried away with long strides and carried her away into a dark forest to his house, which stood in the midst of it. Everything in the house was magnificent. He gave her whatsoever she could possibly desire, and said, "My darling, thou wilt certainly be happy with me, for thou hast everything thy heart can wish for." This lasted a few days, and then he said, "I must journey forth and leave thee alone for a short time. There are keys of the house. Thou mayest go everywhere and look at everything, except into one room, which this little key here opens. And there I forbid thee to go on pain of death." He likewise gave her an egg and said, "Preserve the egg carefully for me, and carry it continually with thee, for a great misfortune would arise from the loss of it." She took the keys and the egg and promised to obey him in everything. When he was gone, she went all around the house from the bottom to the top and examined everything. The rooms shone with silver and gold, and she thought that she had never seen such great splendor. At length she came to the forbidden door. She wished to pass it by, but curiosity let her have no rest. She examined the key. It looked just like any other. She put it in the keyhole and turned it a little, and the door sprang open. But what did she see when she went in? A great bloody basin stood in the middle of the room, and therein lay human beings, dead and hewn to pieces, and hard by was a block of wood, and a gleaming axe lay upon it. She was so terribly alarmed that the egg which she had held in her hand fell into the basin. She got it out and washed the blood off, but in vain. It appeared again in a moment. She washed and scrubbed, but she could not get it out. It was not long before the man came back from his journey, and the first things which he asked for were the key and the egg. She gave them to him, but she trembled as she did so. And he saw at once by the red spots that she had been in the bloody chamber. "Since thou hast gone into the room against my will," said he, "thou shalt go back into it against thine own. Thy life is ended." He threw her down, dragged her thither by her hair, cut her head off on the block, and hewed her in pieces so that her blood ran on the ground. Then he threw her into the basin with the rest. "Now I will fetch myself the second," said the wizard. And again he went to the house in the shape of a poor man and begged. Then the second daughter brought him a piece of bread. He caught her like the first by simply touching her, and carried her away. She did not fare better than her sister. She allowed herself to be led away by her curiosity, opened the door of the bloody chamber, looked in, and had to atone for it with her life on the wizard's return. I like how it's putting the blame on her, like that darn feminine curiosity, because that's totally, that's her fault. Yeah. I love this story because it's so grim. It's terrible, and that it's kind of just how people are also. It's horrible. Anyway, it gets better. Then he went and brought the third sister, but she was clever and crafty. The third sister always is in these stories. When he had given her the keys and the egg, and had left her, she first put the egg away with great care, and then she examined the house, and at last went into the forbidden room. Alas, what did she behold? Both her sisters lay there in the basin, cruelly murdered and cut in pieces. But she began to gather their limbs together and put them in order, head, body, arms, and legs. And when nothing further was wanting, the limbs began to move and unite themselves together, and both the maidens opened their eyes and were once more alive. Then they rejoiced and kissed and caressed each other. On his arrival, the man at once demanded the keys and the egg, and as he could perceive no trace of blood on it, he said, "Thou hast stood the test. Thou shalt be my bride." Ugh, that's a prize, isn't it? He now had no longer any power over her, and was forced to do whatsoever she desired. That's how that works. Okay. "Oh, very well," said she. "Thou shalt first take a basketful of gold to my father and mother, and carry it thyself on thy back. In the meantime, I will prepare for the wedding." Then she ran to her sisters, whom she had hidden in the little chamber, and said, "The moment has come when I can save you. The wretch shall himself carry you home again. But as soon as you are home, send help to me." She put both of them in a basket and covered them quite over with gold, so that nothing of them could be seen. Then she called into the wizard and said to him, "Now carry the basket away, but I shall look through my little window and watch to see if thou stoppest on the way or stand to rest." The wizard raised the basket on his back and went away with it, but it weighed him down so heavily that the perspiration streamed from his face. Then he sat down and wanted to rest a while, but immediately one of the girls in the basket cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I see that thou art resting. Wilt thou go on at once?" He thought it was his bride who was calling at him, and got up on his legs again. Once more he was going to sit, but instantly she cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I see that thou art resting. Wilt thou go on directly?" And whenever he stood still, she cried this, and then he was forced to go onwards, until at last, groaning and out of breath, he took the basket with the gold and the 2 maidens into their parents' house. At home, however, the bride prepared the marriage feast and sent invitations to the friends of the wizard. Then she took a skull with grinning teeth, put some ornaments on it and a wreath of flowers, carried it upstairs to the garret window, and let it look out from thence. When all was ready, she got into a barrel of honey, then cut the feather bed open and rolled herself in it, until she looked like a wondrous bird. I don't know if wondrous is the word, but I bet it was fun. It sounds like something you would expect to see at a wizard wedding party, just somebody covered in honey and feathers. Like, yeah, sure, that tracks, that's fine. I bet that would be a hell of a party. Until she looked like a wondrous bird, and no one could recognize her. Then she went out of the house, and on her way she met some of the wedding guests, who asked, "O Fitcher's bird, how comest thou here?" "I come from Fitcher's house quite near." "And what may the young bride be doing?" "From cellar to garret she's swept all clean, and now from the window she's peeping, I ween." And at last she met the bridegroom, who was coming slowly back. He, like the others, asked, "O Fitcher's bird, how comest thou here?" "I come from Fitcher's house quite near." "And what may the young bride be doing?" "From cellar to garret she's swept all clean, and now from the window she's peeping, I ween." The bridegroom looked up, saw the decked-out skull, thought it was his bride, and nodded to her, greeting her kindly. But when he and his guests had all gone into the house, the brothers and kinsmen of the bride, who had been sent to rescue her, arrived. They locked all the doors of the house, that no one might escape, set fire to it, and the wizard and all his crew had to burn. That was fun. I also, another reason why that's one of my favorites is because it is one of these stories where just everybody died. And it's just like, and then they burned them all alive. The end. How nice is that? Yes, yes. Fire. Burn them all. All right. Let's see. The Singing Bone. In a certain country, there was once great lamentation over a wild boar that laid waste to the farmers' fields, killed the cattle, and ripped up people's bodies with his tusks. Yeah, I bet there was a lot of lamentation over that. He sounds like a dick. The king promised a large reward to anyone who would free the land from this plague. But the beast was so big and strong that no one dared go near the forest in which it lived. At last the king gave notice that whosoever should capture or kill the wild boar should have his only daughter to wife. Now there lived in the country 2 brothers, sons of a poor man, who declared themselves willing to undertake the hazardous enterprise. The elder, who was crafty and shrewd, out of pride; the younger, who was innocent and simple, from a kind heart. The king said, "In order that you may be the more sure of finding the beast, you must go into the forest from opposite sides." So the elder went on the west side, and the younger on the east. When the younger had gone a short way, a little man stepped up to him. He held in his hand a black spear and said, "I give you this spear because your heart is pure and good, and with this you can boldly attack the wild boar, and it will do you no harm." He thanked the little man, shouldered the spear, and went on fearlessly. Before long he saw the beast, which rushed at him, but he held the spear towards it, and in its blind fury it ran so swiftly against it that its heart was cloven in twain. That's a nice. That its heart was cloven in twain. That's some good old-timey story. Yeah, love that stuff. Then he took the monster on his back and went homewards with it to the king. As he came out the other side of the wood, there stood at the entrance a house where people were making merry with wine and dancing. His elder brother had gone in here, and, thinking that after all the boar would not run away from him, was going to drink until he felt brave. But when he saw his young brother coming out of the wood laden with his booty, his envious, evil heart gave him no peace. He called out to him, "Come in, dear brother, rest and refresh yourself with a cup of wine." The youth, who suspected no evil, went in and told him about the good little man who had given him the spear wherewith he had slain the boar. The elder brother kept him there until the evening, and then they went away together. And when in the darkness they came to a bridge over a brook, the elder brother let the other go first. And when he was halfway across, he gave him such a blow from behind that he fell down dead. What a dick! He buried him beneath the bridge, took the boar, and carried it to the king, pretending that he had killed it. Whereupon he obtained the king's daughter in marriage. Yeah, I bet he's going to make a great husband. And when the younger brother did not come back, he said, "The boar must have killed him," and everyone believed it. But as nothing remains hidden from God, so this black deed also was to come to light. Years afterwards, a shepherd was driving his herd across the bridge and saw lying in the sand beneath a snow-white little bone. He thought that it would make a good mouthpiece, so he clambered down, picked it up, and cut out of it a mouthpiece for his horn. But when he blew through it for the first time, to his great astonishment, the bone began of its own accord to sing. "A friend thou blowest upon my bone, long have I lain beside the water. My brother slew me for the boar, and took for his wife the king's young daughter." "What a beautiful horn," said the shepherd. "It sings by itself. I must take it to my lord the king." And when he came to the king, the horn again began to sing its little song. The king understood it all, and caused the ground below the bridge to be dug up, and then the whole skeleton of the murdered man came to light. The wicked brother could not deny the deed, and was sewn up in a sack and drowned. But the bones of the murdered man were laid to rest in a beautiful tomb in a churchyard. That's nice. I mean, it's not, but sewn up in a sack and drowned. That's that's hardcore. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for tonight. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So let's see, before we sign off, let's check the comments here and see. Hi everybody. Hi Kazetta. Yes, yes. A blown bone is a truthful bone. We should all remember that. Okay. Well, good night, everybody. This was fantastic. I think we're gonna make this a regular thing. I don't know if it's gonna be Saturday night necessarily, because I think a lot of people are busy on Saturday nights, unlike myself. Most people have lives. So maybe we'll do Sunday night in the future. Not tomorrow night, because I actually do have stuff to do tomorrow. But I think maybe next week we'll do Sunday. And also, if anybody has any requests, feel free to comment or send me a message. I know there was some request for Cinderella. Maybe next week we'll do the OG Cinderella, which I don't know if you know this, but the original Cinderella was actually called Cinder Slut. Because as far as I know, now I could totally be wrong, and I'm generally full of shit, but I believe that the word slut in like the oldie-timey kind of definition actually has nothing to do with sexual promiscuity. It's more about being like a dirty person or like a low birth, sort of like smutty would be like dirty. So it's kind of like a variation of the word smutty. And so, you know, a dirty, low person then later became a person that was like sexually promiscuous. But yeah, you know, she just was called Cinder Slut because they made her sleep in the hearth, which sounds very gritty. Yeah. Ribbon neck, please. Oh, now ribbon neck, is that... So there's another one called the juniper tree, where is maybe similar to that. So there was a little boy who had his head chopped off by a wicked stepmother, and she put a ribbon around his neck to try and hide it, but his head kept falling off. And then eventually they ate him because, oh yes. Oh, hey, Bug. Yes, juniper tree. Yeah. I think maybe next Sunday, let's do juniper tree. That is a good one. And we get to sing with juniper tree too. That's my favorite part of it. I don't know if anybody else knows the juniper tree song. It's, I'll give you a little taste. It's, what was it? My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister, little Marlinchen, gathered together all my bones, tied them in a silken handkerchief, laid them beneath the juniper tree. Kee-wint, what a beautiful bird am I. And that song would actually make sense if you knew the story. Yeah, saying it out of context, it sounds like a bunch of insane nonsense. But it's a great story, and we'll do that one next, because that is my favorite, and it has been requested. So, all right, well, good night, everybody. Have a wonderful and safe Saturday evening. And I will see you guys in a few days. I think maybe we'll we'll do like Thursday night too. And maybe Thursday and Sundays. Does that sound like a reasonable thing? Anyway, comment, message, yada yada. Good night, y'all.